That you can start with the presentation.
Hello.
Oh.
Sorry, Professor. I was writing to you. Can I be first if it's possible?
I forgot. I just looking for you on macroeconomics. I was so sure that you are there. Okay, so you are, or you can, so you and Anna, you should choose who will be the first. So yeah, I promise to you, so I think that you can start.
Oh, thank you so much, Professor. So I will be, my group consists of 3 people, but I will be presenting here probably alone. So just, I would ask 1 second. Can I show my screen so show the presentation?
Yeah, at least it should be.
Yeah. So just, excuse me, Professor, I will just do this.
And who else in your group?
So now I will share my screen and you will see the names as well. So I'm sharing this. And probably you can see this. Can you see it?
It's in process. Yeah.
Yeah. So in my group, there are other 2 members. It's Alexander Yatsik and Anastasia Lvova. They were unfortunately unable to join today. So the topic of our group is globalization and growing trend on regionalization, and I would like to start from briefly introducing the content. So my part is GATT and WTO, Doha Round, Modern 2, Bretton Woods Conference, its evolution and its impact. And then I will cover changing patterns worldwide, regional economics, and just to explain briefly about NAFTA, USMCA, EU, and the other regional organization, and there will be conclusion and the interactive part. So to start with, it's General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade and WTO, with those 2 organizations as an example in the world economics, the example of globalization, actually. So what is GATT, or General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, which was established in 1947? So the purpose of this establishment was to reduce tariffs and trade, of course, trade barriers in the post-World War II period. So both of those organizations were the result of the efforts after World War II. And it was focusing on promotion of free trade through multiple negotiation rounds. And I will cover Doha Round in this case. And now we have the transition to the WTO, the World Trade Organization, which replaced General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade in 1995 and took on a border mandate, including services and intellectual property, because it's been current trends in that time. And it also introduced a more effective dispute resolution system. So now to talk about Doha Round and Modern 2. As I mentioned, within General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, there were several rounds, and one of them is Doha Round. So Doha Round was launched in 2001, and it aimed to address the needs of developing countries by lowering trade barriers globally. So key issues included agriculture subsidizes, intellectual property rights, and access to market for developing nation, for example, as we may see. And it's still due to disagreements between developed and developing nations. Now there are modern challenges for the WTO. We may include there the rise of protectionism and trade disputes. It's even a little bit political challenge, would influence economic decision making, and it's really a present challenge for the World Trade Organization. Another issue which complicates the operation of this global organization is the digital trade and the evolving global economy. The next one is a weakened dispute settlement system due to the US blockages. And the last one is the increasing use of smaller plurilateral, so multilateral trade agreements instead of broad multilateral deals. So plurilateral, so there is like sort of the one, it's not very fixed When multilateral agreement, there are more than 2 nations involved. Covering those 2 important issues in the economics from the global perspective, there's very important conference in the economic history. It is Bretton Woods Conference and Bretton Woods institutions, which were established afterwards as a result of those discussion. So Bretton Woods Conference, which took place in Bretton Woods in 1947, was organized directly after World War II and aimed to cover the issues which economies worldwide, like in Europe and the America, have faced after the war. And such institutions as the International Monetary Fund were created. So if to talk about the origins, initially it was designed to manage short-term balance of payment issues. So it was not aimed for a long term, but first to face short-term issues. Then it's focused on a global financial stability, economic growth, and currency exchange rates. And as an example, we have IMF. And it focused on provision of policy advices and emergency of financial assistance to countries in crisis. Created during Bretton Woods Conference institutions, they were aimed to stabilize the post-war global economy and its World Bank and International Monetary Fund. So briefly to mention about their evolution, it's that the both institutions have adapted to address the global economic changes, including financial crisis, poverty reduction, and sustainable development, for example. And I would like briefly for myself here mention about John Maynard Keynes and about his, well, not a Keynesian economy in this context, but just to mention his role. Keynes was a leading figure in the 1947 Bretton Woods Conference representing the United Kingdom, and his economic theories, Keynesian economy, for instance, on government interventionism and managing aggregate demand shaped many of the discussions. And his visions and his proposals were basically implemented in the design of the International Monetary Fund and World Bank. For instance, he viewed the economy as he viewed the world as a global economic system, international union to manage global trade. And it had its characteristic in its reflection in the IMF and the World Bank design. Now it's the part of one of my partners, my colleagues, and I'd like to talk about it briefly, changing patterns of domestic and international economic interaction, regional economic interactions. So it's about NAFTA or USMCA. It was established in 1944, USMCA countries, it was NAFTA trade agreement. It was established in 1994. Countries US, Canada, Mexico, role boost trade, labor rights, and environment protections. Another organization which is here is ASEAN. It was established in 1967. Countries Southeast Asia nations, role, free trade area, and RCEP establishment. Another regional economic integration is, of course, the EU, which was established actually in 1991 by the Maastricht Treaty, and countries, it's the European nations, which are now 27, sorry. And the role, it's a single market, economic role, single market, free movement of goods, services, capital, and people, and common policies. And another one is the abbreviation TPP and CPTPP. Those 2 organizations were established in 2015 and 2018. Countries, it's Pacific nations, and it's aimed to reduce tariff standard rule setting in the Pacific region. And another one is TDIP, which was established in 2013 between US and the EU for reducing of regulations and tariffs on some trade policies. And now that is all for the presentation. And I've got the quiz in the form of questions. So I think I will start with the first question. So the first question, so I will ask, there are 5 questions I'm asking. You need to choose the letter, and then we will see the correct answer. So the first question, it is, what is the primary goal of the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, which was mentioned in the beginning? And
Okay.
here you
The answer is probably A.
Okay, so to promote international trade by reducing trade barriers. Are there any other guesses or maybe?
Winner receives some additional points from my perspectives. I need to support something that's interactive.
I think it's B.
B, okay, so A, B, any other? B is to establish the World Trade Organization, all right. Any other thoughts? A, or now we have A and B only. Okay, so not to keep you waiting, let us check. It's A. So the gentleman who mentioned first, it's correct, to promote international trade by reducing trade barriers. Okay, question number 2. Which of the following is not a challenge which is faced by World Trade Organization now? Are there any thoughts?
B.
B, okay, thank you very much. Any other? Excuse me? Someone was.
Let's go with D.
Option D.
Okay, D, B, yeah. Anything else? Okay, so D and B. So let us see. It's D. Excellent, great. Again, I think the same gentleman who get the first question. Managing short-term balance of payments issues for countries. It's not a challenge anymore. Okay. Yeah, it used to be after World War II, but not now. Okay, number 3. What was John Keynes' proposal that was not adopted? Do you have any guesses?
Yes, C is definitely the correct one.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other
The
idea?
same C.
C, okay, thank you. So yeah, it's right. So Ksenia and Hassan, you're correct. It's a global reserve currency called the banker. It was not adopted. All right, and the number 4, which regional economic integration was replaced by the USMCA? So first we have this one, and then we have between Mexico.
D. Let it be D.
Okay, D. Thank you so much. So let us see. Yeah, it's D. It's NAFTA. So it was NAFTA replaced USMCA. Great. And the last question: what is one of the benefits of regional economic integration?
B.
B.
I think. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So let us take a look. It's B. Great. It's market expansion, which is the benefit. Okay, so thank you very much. And that will be all from my side. Maybe you have questions, or Professor, you have questions.
No, we don't. So guys, any questions, comments? I don't know.
A very good quiz. Thank you. It was interesting.
Yes, nice presentation.
Thank you very much.
Anna,
Thank you
wait
for
for your turn. Okay, let's get Flo. Thank you for presentation. Get to Anna because she
Oh,
gets.
it's okay. My partner actually left, so I'll be presenting for few of us.
Okay.
So I'm trying to find my
Okay.
I don't know. Oh. One second, please. So yeah, I'm sorry, but I cannot turn on my video because it's too much money for internet. So I'll try to tell about my presentation like this. So our presentation is about poverty and education and how poverty affects like economics and education at all. So to start with, I would like to tell how poverty is defined and usually measured across all of the world. So the national poverty line generally represents to us the monetary threshold that signifies the level below which individuals cannot like make the minimum basic needs. So this measure has a big context in social and economic context of the country, actually. And so what are the, I don't know, money, money and everything. So the poverty line for low income countries are $2.15 per day. For I don't know, low middle income countries, it's $3 per day, and for upper middle income countries, it's like $6 per day. So, fun fact, I like calculated for Ukraine, $3 per day is like livable, livable money. So I think we can consider our country as lower middle income country. So yeah. Also, our World Bank set a target to reduce a proportion of people that are living in extreme poverty below 3% by 2030. Also, by the past years, they have already achieved some goals, and the number of people that are living in poverty is what I told you before, $2.15 has fallen by 45 and 5 million people per year. I think it's a great number. So also about inequality and shared prosperity. So as with poverty, there are many ways to measure inequality. There are some of the ways. First, it's a Gini index and the share of consumption. Or income attribute to each quintile. Sorry, it's my partner's slide, so I don't know. Also, these indicators allow us for different ways to reflect and communicate of our income distribution. And also to monitor some progress and boost shared prosperity, the World Bank has and tracks the consumption income of poorest 40% of the population in each country. So like the bottom 40%. So also the progress is measured by the difference between growth in the consumption or income and the bottom 40% and the growth in the consumption or income of that mean of population as a whole. So income inequality remains unacceptably high. It reaches 10% of the people receive per day $334, and if you calculate, this money will be enough like for 100 people per day of lower income countries to survive. So the inequality is quite high nowadays. Not looking at the data that we have fought about 45 and 5 million people about past 30 years. Also, I would like to tell you about how population growth has its consequences on the poverty. It's it's a really interesting topic because for many centuries and decades, people tried to I don't know, discuss how it affects. So in 1798, Thomas Malthus has argued about the population growth that leads to a decline in the living standards in the long run, but he has somehow mistaken because he did not, oh, I'm sorry, wrong slide. Because he has not predicted that the population for his forecast will grow from 1 billion to 7.4 billion people to today. And also we will have like more technological advances, we will have better agricultural productivity, and we will fight actually a lot of diseases and infections that thought that they will be lethal in those days. Also, back in 1980s, in the future, also some scientific researchers said that maybe there are no statistical correlation between population growth and economic growth in the countries. But that is not the end, because the story doesn't end here. In 1990s, researchers made two discoveries. First one, people thought that it's neutral between population growth and economic growth. And the second one says clearly that the more people we get, the bigger problems with poverty we have. And also, there was an interest in East Asian countries research that the more people and technological advancement we have, the more problems with population we will have, and people do not want to have kids, and maybe we will not have poverty in this country, but we will have no population growth. So like two-faced problems. And yeah, that's the second key discovery that I talked with you about, that people discovered that there is a negative correlation between population growth and economic growth in further analysis. And in 201, there was summarized a new view that says that the rapid population growth has a significant negative impact on economic growth in developing countries. So a lot of decades, a lot of centuries passed by, and now we think that the more population we get, the more poverty problems, and in developing countries we will have something like this. And here is my part. I will try to tell you about this as my best. So my part is about how poverty like affects on the economy. So education returns actually are high in most countries, and people should invest in education because it causes less inequality, because as more people get educated, it will boost economic growth in the country, and all that money will return to you. So as you can see on the slide about the information, so many strategies has been proposed to realize those returns, but financing, as I told you before, is an issue. So most countries spend 3 to 5% of their GDP on public spending of education. Yeah. So why should we invest in education? So public education has been argued for by people, even though the returns are very high. So there are other reasons to involve the public in education rather than spending all students to invest the most. So education is called a great equalizer because it leads to more employment and more resources for the country. And also UNESCO estimates that 171 million of people could escape extreme poverty if they had only basic reading abilities and skills. And all adults completing the secondary education, as you can see, may eliminate the world poverty by over half. So I think you can clearly see how education is connected to poverty. So also, according to a lot of researchers, human capitals draws a wealth gap in all nations. And also there was a report in 219 that says that a good quality education can be liberating for individuals, and it can act as a lever and equalizer within the society. So education, basically, it's a human right, and it can be used to overcome such problems as poverty and I don't know how to tell it properly. The people with low studies and something like that cannot be manipulated if they will know their rights, and they will have like basic education. So no inequality, no not fair money payments and something like that. Also, there was a very interesting investigation about how education can reduce maternal and newborn mortality. So in 217 analysis, there was suggested that 70% of deaths of children and their mothers, they were because they didn't know how to properly give birth and to I don't know, care about the child in their first years. And as we know, less population, less people that we can study, and less people that we can grow our country by. And also one study has found that 50% of Bangladesh families increased maternal education has lowered the risks of inequality and poverty, because they have known how to care about children, and their standards of life has increased. And also interesting fact that education lessens HIV and AIDS risks. Basically, there is growing evidence that keeping girls in schools reduces the risk of contacting HIV. And also educational achievement currently lowers HIV risks more than it did early in the epidemic. So, yeah. I think this is all. Sorry for me struggling, and thank you for your attention. Maybe some questions, rhetorical.
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah, okay.
You said on your last slide that education lowers the risk of HIV and AIDS. What kind of education lowers that?
So you understand that in some lower income countries, they do not have some, I don't know how to explain to you, volunteers or maybe educational infrastructures that will tell people about medicine, about basic skills to prevent HIV. So people do not know about contraception and how to prevent these diseases. And by learning them that, we can reduce, I don't know, risks of death and new infections.
Okay, so like sexual education.
Yeah, basically. Thank you.
Gotcha.
More questions?
It's like, it's funny but not funny. Yeah, that actually it's also was one of you and I think researchers then when they teach people how to wash hands, it's like increase survival in some regions drastically. So sometimes even this kind of education, like nobody tells that if you, I don't know, wash everything in this part of the river, you shouldn't take water for cooking down the river. You should do it like on the top. Yeah, so that's some basic things, and there are some things that should be tell people. Actually, in our like more educated societies, there are another kinds of things that should be talked regularly, like not pay money to each guy who call you and ask for some payments because of something, etc.
Yeah, of course, I understand what you're talking about, but in our presentation, we are talking about poverty and like the most countries that have like I don't know how to explain to you. Самий великий ризик of poverty, they should like emphasize on such researches that are like known to us, that it's our basics, but for them it can be really crucial to overcome poverty and become more educated. So that was the point.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. It's like the basic education, it's like basic rules. So
Yeah.
and like you cannot change nothing in the country if people just do not know that something can be done in our way, because they have no access to actually to any.
Yes, and about education, I was worried about the presentation. So if you do not know some basics of life, of education, you can be easily manipulated, and that's where poverty comes from, because you will be underpaid, you maybe do not know how to count money and everything like this. So it's like really basic rules that countries with really extreme poverty should know, and that's why we should like have education in such countries, because yeah, as I told on my previous slides, the investments in education are really high, but they will give you the results. You will have a lot of educated people in the future, and they will lead the country in the future. So that's the point I was trying to tell you.
Yeah, and just like the last comment from my side, that actually that's the problem, that you can, there is no such thing like you can give those people, I don't know, in those country, yeah, the technology and think that it will work, yeah, because
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah, but also
basic-
about the technology, there was also an interesting research that I have found during my presentation, that technology involved classes in poverty countries had a great boost on education. So people without technology achieved the same results, for example, in a year, but people with technology achieved those results in like half a year. So if we teach those people technology, it can like give a big boost on learning. So yeah.
Okay, perfect, thanks. So we should have at least one more group, as I remember. Any
Okay.
other question, guys, comments, I don't know, sharing the
No
experience?
questions.
Okay, thank you for the questions.
Presentation. Yeah, now let's move on to our presentation with Saladin. And this topic is quite controversial, but still very interesting. And this is, let me share the screen. You see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
present your
Do you hear me,
controversial topic.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Yeah, so today we'll discuss important topic, corruption as a global issue. Yes, move the slide, please. Now on the screen you can see the content we're going to present, just to let you know. So yeah, let's start about what corruption really is. It's not just an abstract concept, it affects our daily lives, from the quality of service we receive, the trust we have in our institutions. We can define it many ways, but at its core, corruption is the abuse of power for personal gain. This can be government official taking bribes or corporate executives embezzling funds. Basically, such activities hurt people by diverting resources away from where they're needed. Yeah, and also corruption acts like a hidden tax. When public funds are misused, less is available for healthcare, education, and infrastructure. It's a big reason why trust in institutions has declined in many parts of the world. Therefore, fighting corruption means creating fair systems that work for everyone, not just a select few. So as we mentioned some of the basics, now we can move to different types of corruption we see globally. Corruption shows up in many ways, each with its own impact. First is bribery, probably the one most people think about. It's when someone offers money or gifts to get a certain outcome. Like a company bribing an official for contract, it's common because it can happen anywhere and actually easy to achieve. Next, embezzlement is when someone steals money they were supposed to manage responsibly. It's especially damaging because it often involves public funds, money which mean, for example, schools or healthcare. Then there is extortion fraud. Extortion used tricks to get something like money or information, and fraud involves lies or deception to benefit oneself, which can result in breaking down trust in systems. These forms of corruption can happen in political, corporate, systemic areas. For example, political corruption involves government abuse of power. Corporate corruption is unethical business practices. Systemic corruption is integrated, unfortunately, in the system itself.
Okay,
Yeah,
after
next slide.
discussing different types of corruption, let's move to famous international scandals examples. Yeah, now our first example is the Petrobras scandal, also known as Operation Car Wash. It uncovers systemic corruption in Brazil's state-controlled oil company, Petrobras, lasting from 2004. Politicians and executives were found to be part of a scheme that involves contracts with artificially increased prices, with companies abusing Petrobras for redirecting the excess funds as bribes to politicians and company officials. The scandal led to protests and political instability in Brazil, which resulted to an economic downturn, as you can see here from the graph on this slide. It shows Brazil's GDP growth rate seriously dropping during the peak of the story from 2014 to 2016. Also, what is worth mentioning here is that such corruption led to over $5 billion in losses for Petrobras company. Next one is Siemens. The Siemens bribery scandal is one of the largest corporate corruption cases ever uncovered, taking place in over 10 countries. In 2008, Siemens admitted to paying over $1.4 billion in bribes to secure contracts which were supposed to guarantee that the company would be chosen for those business deals and projects that were beneficial for them. Siemens executives used slush funds and fake contracts to hide bribes. Directors were also making lower in rank employees be forced to collaborate and perceive this as a normal part of business. It resulted in enormous damage to Siemens' reputation, corporate restructuring, and $1.6 billion in fines. This scandal highlighted the importance of internal audits, training for employees, and rigorous monitoring. And the last example today is the Panama Papers scandal that leaked 11 million files from the law firm Mossack Fonseca in 2016. It revealed how wealthy individuals and public officials used offshores to evade taxes, hide their assets, and conduct other illegal money activities. The leaked documents involved renowned worldwide celebrities, business leaders, and politicians. Among them, by the way, Ukrainian ex-president Petro Poroshenko. Also, on this slide, you can see the other notable figures involved, such as British Prime Minister David Cameron and Iceland's former Prime Minister Sigmundur Gunnlaugsson, who eventually resigned.
Yeah, so we learned some examples, and that's also important to know that corruption has major consequences on the global economy. First, corruption hampers economic growth by creating inefficiencies in both public and private sectors. Diverted funds mean less investment in infrastructure, education, and healthcare, which are critical to growth. Second, foreign investment is highly sensitive to corruption. Investors avoid environments with high risk of bribes and non-transparent decision-making, which can reduce capital inflow. And as you can see in the graphic, corruption can lead to an 80% decline in investment attractiveness in corrupt environments. Moreover, corruption distorts international trade. When companies gain unfair advantages through bribes, it undermines competition and leads to inefficient resource allocation, affecting trade relations. The infographic highlights 4 areas of impact. First main is product international markets, which suffer by up to 70%, losing efficiency and fair competition. Next is investments, which decline by around 80%, stalling economic growth. Third one, development projects, which are affected by 75%, leading to poor infrastructure and services. And lastly, trust in government declines by 85%, weakening governance and causing instability. This shows the broad impact of corruption, not just economically, but also on trust, development, and social national progress. Yeah. Move another slide, thanks. In this slide, we'll take a closer look at the specific impacts of corruption across key sectors. First, corruption has significant impact on fair direct investment. Countries with high levels of corruption receive between 20 to 50% less FDI. This means fewer funds available for economic growth and infrastructure projects, which directly lowers the progress. Next, GDP growth is also hindered by corruption. A high level of corruption can reduce annual GDP growth from 1 to 2%. This reduction limits a country's ability to improve living standards, develop infrastructure, create jobs, which ultimately affecting overall prosperity. Next one is infrastructure spending, which is another area deeply affected by corruption. In highly corrupt nations, spending on crucial infrastructure projects is reduced by around 30%. Funds that should be used to improve roads, schools, healthcare facilities are often diverted for personal gain, leading to underdeveloped infrastructure and poor services. Finally, public trust in government is severely affected by corruption also. Public trust is typically 30% lower in countries with high corruption levels. This loss of confidence in institutions weakens governments, undermines policy effectiveness, and can lead to social unrest and instability. By looking at this, we can clearly see the pervasive consequences of corruption, both economic performance and societal well-being. Your turn, Hassan.
Now that we have discussed, thank you, the impact of corruption on the global economy, let's shift our focus to the organizations which attempting to fight against this global issue. To begin, let's talk about the role of Transparency International. It was established in 1993, and since then has been playing a crucial role in fighting corruption by raising awareness, calling for transparency, and encouraging anti-corruption measures. One of its key tools is the Corruption Perception Index. You can see the map version now, and here is its text version. As you can see, it ranks countries based on perceived corruption levels from red to yellow, where latter is better. So basically, this German-based organization founded by former employees of the World Bank is promoting anti-corruption policies and holding governments' responsibility through advocacy campaigns and public pressure. Next, let's look at the United Nations' role in addressing corruption. From the beginning, the United Nations aimed to raise the importance of international cooperation to tackle the issue. They developed several resolutions and conventions, including the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC, yeah? And it covers measures shown on this slide. Actually, the first three ones are resolutions which was earlier in the United Nations and then was adopted in the convention. They were condemning corruption, involving transnational companies, setting the foundation for encouraging governments to prevent corruption before it starts, as well as guidelines for law enforcement and international collaboration. Lastly, I can't miss mentioning the World Bank Group's contribution. It tries to fight corruption through risk management, monitoring of projects, and investigation by its Integrity Vice Presidency, supported by public complaint mechanisms. Companies involved in misconducts are restricted from the future World Bank finance projects, with over 1,000 firms and individuals already sanctioned. Examples of World Bank's projects can be development of an AI system in Brazil, identifying potential scams which led to disclosure of hundreds high-risk cases, for example, such as firms with a high probability of being shell companies and link firms competing each other. In Ukraine, the World Bank worked with other partners to promote creation of anti-corruption court and helped to create a complex electronic asset declaration system. So these examples prove that the World Bank aims to help practically compared to the previous ones and tries to ensure transparency, accountability, and reduce corruption risks across all its development projects.
Yeah, as we have mentioned in previous slides about Transparency International's corruption index, let's sum up with the corruption levels across different regions. It's clear that corruption levels vary a lot, and each region has actually unique challenges. Africa generally has high levels of corruption. In Asia, corruption varies widely from country to country. Europe has lower corruption levels in the West, but corruption is more prevalent in Eastern Europe. North America has relatively low corruption levels. Latin America experiences moderate to high corruption. Oceania mostly has quite low corruption levels. As for Middle East, corruption levels are generally high. Move the slide. Now let's focus more on why corruption happens in different regions. Each region has its own mix of factors that contribute to corruption, For example, weak institutions are a big factor in many places, like parts of Africa and Eastern Europe. When institutions aren't strong enough, it's hard to prevent corruption from happening. Political instability is another major contributor. In regions like Latin America and the Middle East, frequent government changes and conflicts create opportunities for corruption. Next is organized crime also plays a big role, especially in Latin America and some parts of Asia. When crime groups have influence, it becomes easier for corruption to spread. Lastly, bureaucracy can also contribute to corruption, especially in places where government processes are slow or overly complicated. This is common in parts of Asia and Oceania.
Okay. And let's talk about anti-corruption measures and their effectiveness. To begin, let's mention Brazil and Germany, which, as you remember, we had problems with. After corruption scandals I've described, they have adopted anti-corruption strategies, including legislative reforms, anti-corruption mechanisms, and strengthened international cooperation. Brazil, for instance, implemented the Clean Company Act in 2013. This act led to significant fines during Operation Car Wash. In Germany, after the Siemens bribery scandal, stricter compliance regulations and corporate governance requirements were introduced, with Siemens restructuring its compliance system with internal audits and mandatory employee training programs on anti-corruption practices, which eventually resulted in more transparency. After the Panama Papers leak in 2016, countries introduced legislation to enhance financial transparency and fight against tax evasion. The UK, for example, implemented beneficial ownership registers to disclose company owners, allowing authorities to identify individuals behind shell companies. The European Union adopted the Anti-Money Laundering Directive to strengthen financial supervision by increasing monitoring of financial transactions, requiring better identification of the owners and checking for sources of financial resources. Assessing the effectiveness of these measures, we can look at this histogram showing positive outcomes of the corruption perception index rise. All of these countries have reached increased transparency, stronger regulation, and better reliability. By the way, discussed earlier, Siemens has transformed anti-corruption enforcement, since then becoming kind of an example company for its changes. However, there's still some challenges in ensuring compliance across borders, as the degree of such described anti-corruption measures seriously varies between different countries. In conclusion, corruption is a global issue that impacts economies, governance, and daily lives across the world, both public and private sectors. Corruption acts like a hidden tax that diverts resources away from essential services like healthcare, education, infrastructure, diminishing public trust and undermining growth. So to fight corruption, we must promote transparency, strengthen regulations, and work globally on sustainable development. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, yes, thanks for presentation. So, as usual, the best question, how we can fight the corruption? Give us a recipe. Some prescription.
Yeah. How to find the corruption?
Fight, yeah. If we
You can
want,
fight.
How to fight? As I
Okay,
said, we
it's
can implement. Yeah. Okay. Who will answer?
okay. Well,
Okay, we can
it's
start
very
and
simple.
if you want.
I will
Yeah.
tell you in thesis, like promote transparency and for strict regulation. That's were covered in our presentation. Strengthen some institutions and like encourage international cooperation.
Yeah, basically that's the
So-
reason why the corruption occurs, because of this not strength side.
okay, so then let's choose one of the country you feel most comfortable with and tell me one thing that this country should do in order to be more transparent, whatever, less corrupt.
Any country or from our presentation?
Any country. No, it's like the problem that for world, it's like that's all words. We know
Actually,
what to do.
Yeah, as I've
what-
described in United Kingdom, there was this legislation about checking all the financial transactions. Yes, so as authorities can identify where is like strange transactions between different companies, and identify who is the owner of each company. So that's why it was about, I guess, like, I don't remember which country, either Germany or United Kingdom, So they're disclosing the owners of companies. And kind of this thing was implemented in Ukraine. Actually, now it's like kind of being strengthened because we have this stricter rule now that we are limited in 150,000 hryvnias between P2P transactions. Yeah. So it's also about like governance controlling our transactions to trying not to find these strange transactions and identify where's the corruption. Like it's also like it's always kind of about the control, and if it's about actually individuals, you can't really control it because you can do a lot of things, like for example online. If you want to, I don't know, buy a license, driving license, but you need to work with machine, it's currently like you have no any choices than work with machine. So implementing for example, as it was in Brazil, any AI systems, as it was said, is also a great choice, like to develop these anti-corruption measures.
Okay. Yes, any other questions? Or we'll stop here with the corruption?
Or you don't agree with me? If everybody agrees, then fine.
Okay, so we'll all agree with
We can talk a lot about this topic. It's like a topic not just for 15 minutes.
I
yeah.
know. That's why I think that we need to stop here. And as I understand, we have another presentation. Oh, no. Oh, we don't.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
can I
thank you for
present?
attention, guys.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, appreciate it.
So that's all for today. Oh, we have one more presentation.
One more presentation.
Perfect. So
If I
you
can
can
share, I can do it now. One more minute, please.
Because as I can guess, the only reason you switch on your camera, it's presentation and final and meet. Only three reasons I can come.
Можна
No,
я
because we
спитаю, як
know
презентувати, ну, як вивести презентацію на екран? Я забула.
Велика зелена кнопка.
Поділитися.
І там, ну, і далі вибираєте. У мене share, і далі screens. Вибираєте, яким скріном з цього всього ви хочете поділитися.
Любовь, we just understand how lonely it gets to switch on your camera by yourself. So we decided to switch on for you to see our faces as well. It's like a love gesture.
I appreciate it a lot.
So do you see our presentation?
Yeah,
Yes?
yeah.
Okay, we'll do it better. Okay, so good evening, everyone. We're pleased to welcome you on our presentation on an important topic, global market and global competition. Do they encourage or discourage economic growth? So we did this presentation in 3, but unfortunately Anastasia is absent today. Okay, so we will start from introduction. This is an important topic because it's impact not only the global economy, but also our daily lives. The global market is a system where goods and services freely move between countries. So, for example, when you buy a smartphone, it might be manufactured in one country, but while its components come from another. For example, like iPhone 16, if you know what I mean. So global competition is the rivalry between companies trying to offer us the best products at the best price. So companies from different countries compete to win our businesses, and this competition drives them to constantly improve, which benefits us as customers. So let's move on to the history of globalization.
Globalization started a long time ago. The first caravans transporting goods between countries can be considered the beginning of globalization. Trade routes like the Silk Road connected the East the West, allowing for the exchange of goods and ideas. So with the development of technology, globalization became even faster. The discovery of sea routes in the 15th century and later the internet and fast transportation made the world even more interconnected. And today we can order a product from another country with just a few clicks, a prime example of modern globalization. Okay, move on. Benefits of a global market. So global market offers us many benefits. First of all, it expands our access to goods and services. In the past, many things were unavailable but thanks globalization, we can enjoy products from all over the world. And for example, we can eat fruits from southern countries in winter and have modern gadgets quickly reach the market thanks to international supply chains. So that was the first one. Second is global competition lowers prices and improves quality. So because of this, we will have a lower price. And when company complete, they strive to offer the best. A good example is the rivalry between Apple and Samsung. So both companies keep creating more innovative smartphones, but innovating smartphones which ultimately benefit us. So next one is role of global competition in economic growth. Global competition, and the next 4 slides was Anastasia Kilik, so I will briefly explain about what they were. So global competition is really important for boosting economic growth. It encourages companies to innovate, find new ways to be more efficient, and provides more benefits from customers, like better products and lower prices. It always also attracts foreign investment, which helps local economic growth. So, however, global, one more second, however, there are challenges too. Domestic industries that cannot keep up with global competition might struggle, leading to job losses or even the decline of certain sectors. If companies cannot compete with cheaper or more efficient foreign products, it can have a serious impact on those industries. Next one is economic growth and open markets. So open markets and free trade are closely linked to economic growth for several reasons. They help allocated resources efficiently, create more trade opportunities, promote technologies transfer, and provide better access to capital. But however, open markets can also expose economies to external shocks like financial crisis or changes in global demand, which can be especially challenging for smaller or developing economies. And I will pass the word to Igor.
Yep. So for the 6th slide, I will start with problems and reasons of globalization. Okay, so we have multiple problems and multiple reasons to have globalization. So globalization offers numerous advantages, but also brings a set of problems. The problems include job displacement, income inequality. One of the most interesting ones for me is cultural homogenization. For some that do not know what this is, it's exchange between cultures. Other countries become familiar with other cultures, so it could cause a set of problems. For example, some people believe in one thing, others, the other group doesn't believe in the second thing. This could become a problem. But the reasons for globalizations include things like technical advancements, policy liberalization, market expansion, which is one of the most important things. The more we trade, the more economies grow, the more money we have, and the more advanced we become as a country. Ksenia, switch to the next slide.
Okay.
So inequality and globalization. Of course, globalization comes with inequality. Makes sense. So we have a lot of reasons. For example, income inequality within countries, dimensions of inequality, such as regional inequality, gender inequality, inequality between countries, and solutions to inequality. So the solutions that we can come up with for the inequality is education and training. As 2 presentations ago, we discussed on how education helps with poverty. Here we discuss how we can solve inequality with globalization. Okay, so we can also include tax reforms, inclusive globalization, and social safety nets. It says there on the bottom, globalization has helped reduce poverty and grow economies, but its impact on inequality requires thoughtful policy solutions to ensure benefits are shared widely. Next slide. Okay, well, now we have economic risks of globalizations and global markets, I assume. Global markets come with risks. One risk is political instability. When governments change policies or there is conflict, it can disrupt the economy. For example, wars, Ukraine, Russia, a lot of countries has basically blocked Russia from globalization, from global trade. Also, trade wars like between US and China can cause problems for businesses. Another risk is economic crisis. Like in 2008 financial crisis, it started with United States, but over a short time period, this problem affected many other countries as well. It was a problem with housing. So there are political risks, there are economic risks, which include crises that can spread to other countries, as we discussed. One of the other examples are COVID-19, also disrupted global trade and caused economic issues. And also some countries may protect their economies by raising tariffs or limiting imports because of such issues. Next slide. So what we're looking at is the future prospects. In the future, technology will keep changing the economy. Makes sense. Artificial intelligence, we hear it everywhere. In my personal opinion, artificial intelligence is one of the best things, and we will see it a lot in the future. So automation make businesses faster and more efficient. We've heard about this. A lot of people use ChatGPT. These technologies will increase competition. Sustainability will also become more important as we fight climate change. Fast-growing countries in Asia and Africa will impact the global economy. So the new technologies like artificial intelligence, automation are changing businesses, Green technologies and climate change rules will shape the future, and countries like China, India, and parts of Africa will drive future economies growth. That includes many other countries, not just China, India, and parts of Africa. Next slide. That's basically it for the presentation. We can both finish this, me and Ksenia here. We have discussed the good and bad sides of globalization. So I would like to ask you, is
One more minute.
globalization good or bad for economic growth? Yes.
Okay. So guys, is it good? Is it better? Something.
I want to say one word from a perspective, like conclusion, that I think that globalization stimulate economic growth, but also make goods and services more accessible and of high quality for all of us. So globalization allows companies to operate more efficiently, and as customer, we get better deals. Thank you for attention, and we have one question for discussion.
Just to remind if somebody not put pluses in the chat, so do it now. I think that everybody, just in case. For me, to great new presentation. Not presentation, presence. Okay, if we're talking about globalization, from my perspective, it's difficult to discuss is it good or is it bad, so we cannot stop it. I don't think that it's possible, and I said, stop. Let's start with the very beginning. So it's rather about how we can mitigate the risk.
No, of course, yes, of course, we cannot stop globalization. The point is there are good and bad sides for globalizations. That's why for the question goes, is globalization good or bad for economic growth?
Okay.
Yes, anyways, thank you for listening. Me and Ksenia.
No,
Thank
no.
It was a pleasure.
Yes, we were very trying to do this presentation interesting.
Yeah, but it's 8 p.m. and everybody like globally
Yes, everybody is
tired.
sleeping.
Yeah. But thanks for your presentation. So no more. Okay, no discussion. It's a pity actually. Okay, thanks guys for your presentation. It was interesting, and actually I like how you design it, even though that I generally prefer like dark font on bright ground, and not
The
vice.
design was actually made by Ksenia,
But
which
I know a lot of
I can
people.
applaud her. It's very well made. I like it personally.
Oh yeah, but when you saw dinosaurs and unit glasses, everything that written in like white font on some dark blue black is almost unreadable. The worst, it's not about the Xenia presentation, but the worst variant, it's white on red background. It's like
Ms. Jarova, we already are living in the dark times, so we can somehow make our lives more colorful with this presentation.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it. Okay, thanks, guys. And I'm waiting for the other presentation on our next meeting again. So you cannot receive maximum grade if you are not present or participate in preparing presentation who presents somebody in else during our meetings. And I hope that you also, those who presented today, also join our next meeting. And we'll ask the questions. Thanks. Maybe you even switch on your cameras. Okay. Have a nice evening. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks a lot. See you next time.
Perfect.